This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are joined again by Katie Hurley. She is the author of this book, The Happy Kid Handbook, How to Raise Joyful Children in a Stressful World. It is so different than when we grew up. I mean, the stress level for these kids today, even those darn smartphones, I feel like, are stress-inducing. Give us a sense of kind of when we grew up and today.
Well, that's kind of where we are now in the world of parenting. We're looking at what were we doing 20 years ago that was so different than what's happening today. And the stress is pretty exponential when you look at it. And anxiety disorders, depressive disorders among children are on the rise. And we're sort of trying to reel that in and figure out how do we help them.
I want to ask you about anxiety disorders because that is what I perceive to really be on the rise. I mean, I can't tell you how many parents I have spoken with in my daughter's era, which is their 13 and 11, where their kids are anxious, some are even on medication. I mean, and it's not depression. We'll get there in a second, but anxiety seems to be really on the rise.
Anxiety is on the rise, Brad. Kids, there are a lot of causes. I mean, first of all, academics are higher stress than they used to be. And kids are on the fast track to success. But if we back it up a little bit, that kind of starts when they're toddlers these days. You know, when you and I grew up, they threw us outside and said, come home for dinner, right? You know, look before you cross, don't talk to a stranger. That was basically the parameters of being a child. And you had plenty of time to play, you had time to figure things out, you tested your own limits. Today, age 2, they're playing soccer tots. You know, they're playing club soccer at age 6. My son was recruited by a club team, and he's 6, and they said, he can play for the U8, and I said, he's 6. And they said, yeah, but he's really talented. And I said, yes, but he'll cry.
He'll cry,
He's going to cry every time, you know. So, but a lot of parents are funneling their kids into different sports. It's not just sports, it's arts, it's music. There are 4-year-olds taking violin lessons and practicing 3 hours a day.
So what can we do as parents? How to raise joyful children in a stressful world? Because look, you know, I admit I'm a high-stress guy, and I'm trying to drive my kids to create as many options as possible. That's what I feel like. What parents want are just options for kids. So that's why they're trying to give them all these possibilities.
Right, and there's a couple things we need to do. One of it is we have to put our own fears and anxieties into perspective.
Yeah, good luck to that.
I know. I mean,
and you're talking to the guy who needs to do that.
I mean, the landscape of fear for parents has changed over time.
I'm in a panic.
We're in a panic that they're not going to get into Harvard.
My daughter's in 8th grade, okay, my eldest. I'm already panicked about college. Hello, she's in 8th grade.
Right, it's
she's
ridiculous.
Not even in high school.
It's ridiculous. You know, when you put it all away and you sit yourself down with a cup of tea and you relax, you think to yourself, this is ridiculous. You know, I have this great kid on my hands. She's doing all these things. She's nice. She's kind. She's empathic. What is really important in this world? You know, but then we start our day and we get trapped in this culture of busy that we've all created, this generation. We've created this busyness trap.
One of the things I loved about your book was that you look at kids as individuals.
Yes.
And that really comes home for me because I have 2 daughters whom you know.
Yes.
They couldn't be more different.
Right.
They're both great for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
I would think they're born in the same, you know, to the same parents, grow up in the same house, and yet totally different.
Totally different people.
Talk to me.
Kids come into this world with personalities, and it's interesting because as parents, we want like the guidebook, right? We want the easy button. So here's what I want my kid to be. What are the 5 things I need to do to get there? And we put them all in a box. And then they go to school, and the schools put them in a box. And say, well, if you just learn all of these things, you'll be successful. That's all you've got to do. You'll be college and career ready. Those are the buzzwords today. You know, so we're sort of like, we constantly have them on this treadmill. But then when we get personal with them, we say like, oh, well, this is my daughter, and she's the quiet one, and she's very creative. This is how I would describe, and I'm guilty of it. This is how I would describe my daughter, because what we want other people to know is, hey, this is my really great kid, and please, you know, handle this kid with care, right? But then we try to parent them the same way, and we try to educate them exactly the same way, and we try to plug them into all the things because that's what everybody's doing. But when you break it down and you think about your child as an individual, and you think about, well, are they more introverted? Are they more extroverted? And not black and white thinking, not either or, but because most kids fall somewhere right in the middle, or, you know, to the sides of the middle. You know, maybe they're a tiny bit extroverted, but not totally. And so when we break it down and we think about, well, what helps this kid thrive? 5 and what makes this kid tick, then we can really parent them in a way that empowers them to live a happy life.
What's tricky, because I'm sure you do as well, have 2 very different kids.
Yes.
They see that we're parenting differently, and then they get upset about it.
I'm really honest with my kids about it. And I say, I mean, we all take, I mean, every year just for fun, we do these little learning assessments. I even make my husband do it just for fun. Like the beginning of each school year, do a learning assessment, and we just did it. And, you know, my husband and my son are both auditory learners, and my daughter and I are both visual learners, and then that sparks the conversation. Well, that's why, you know, Riley needs this kind of a learning environment. I just moved her to a private school.
Oh, really?
And my son is staying at the public school because he's doing fine there, but she was really struggling with being introverted and quiet and needing more hands-on learning, and the public school was not giving her that. So now she's in a very creative environment in a much smaller school.
And so let's talk about school, because this is a new year. Kids are just getting back to school. And that is anxiety producing.
It is.
It's amazing how that summer slump can just be a slump.
Yeah,
I mean, my kids, you know, as much as we try to enrich them, I mean, they feel that they've been out of school.
They do. And I do think that part of the problem is that the academics have been so intense that kids are totally checking out in the summer, and they need to, because they're under stress and they're exhausted, and they just can't do one more thing come June 15th or whatever the end date is. You know, they're just done. You know, some of the fun of reading has been taken away. You know, you've got people trying to get 4-year-olds to read.
Can you just help me with the reading? Because I have one daughter who loves to read. I have another daughter who, she reads her homework. I mean, she doesn't miss a page when it's assigned, but if it's not assigned,
but she doesn't love it. Yeah.
What is that? Just, do I need to accept it and move on?
You know, exposing them to different things. I mean, I was just talking with an old friend about, you know, comic books and how some kids,
that's a good idea. Even magazines,
you know, tween magazines. I mean, there's all sorts of options.
Let me ask you about coping skills, because we got to the stress part. We know they're individual kids. Help us, parents, help our kids cope with anxiety or even depression. I mean, because there is depression.
Right. Yeah. I think the big thing with families these days is we sort of we send them out there, and we are so busy and we are so overscheduled, and we just say, like, you'll be fine, you know, just you're great, you're gonna be fine, you got this. And we don't give them the tools that they need, and kids don't come into this world with a toolbox full of coping skills.
Can I tell you, my eldest daughter yesterday said to me, I'm afraid I won't know how to pay the bills and to handle taxes.
No, to self-teach finances.
Yes. But she's in 8th grade. But think about that. Who would have thought of that when we were in 8th grade?
Certainly not me.
Yeah. But that's, so what coping mechanisms can I offer?
You know, I think a big thing right now is mindfulness training, and for good reason, because it really centers people.
And mindfulness means
slowing down, visualizing, learning actually how to do deep breathing. I can't tell you how many times I try to get a kid to do deep breathing, and they go, and they make it worse. You know, they start hyperventilating. So, you know, with my kids, I teach them little tricks, like pretend you're blowing up a balloon and send it off into the air. So really teaching them how to breathe, to slow down their heart rate, to slow down that feeling of panic that takes over. Because once that panic sets in, as you know, it's all consuming, and it's really hard to get out of.
It is amazing how just taking a breath, and maybe 2 or 20.
It's honestly the single best thing you can do when anxiety kicks in, is sit down, center yourself, breathe. So I actually teach kids to come up with their own little scripts for visualization. So they're walking through a fairy forest, they're walking on a rainbow, whatever it is.
Her name is Katie Hurley. She is the author of this book. It's called The Happy Kid Handbook, How to Raise Joyful Children in a Stressful World. It's coming out this fall, 2015. Congratulations. This is your second book?
It's my first book.
It's your first, but you've been on before. I don't know what we were talking about.
Because I write all the
You write articles. We were talking about, okay. So congratulations on this. Be sure to get it. Fall 2015. My name is Brad Pomerance in Long Beach today. This is Charter Local Edition.